Welcome back. The next thing we want to do is start gathering up our fonts. Now, how we would do this is I guess you would just go through the document and you would click on all the different text fields and look at what all the different fonts are. For example, here we have a font called Poppins, and its font weight is extra bold. And then we have a font here called Courgette, and it's just the regular font style. So you need to take into account both what font it is and the font style or the font weight. Now, I've already gone ahead and done this for all of us, but if you wanted to go through this file, it's pretty simple. You just want to make sure you unlock the layer that you're trying to click on, and then you can just like hold Control and then like double click on a piece of text, and it'll take you right to it. And then we can see this one is like Open Sans Bold. Now, I have already created a list for us. I'm sorry, all this is pretty messy. I had a bunch of notes in here from the last time I actually recorded this. But that's all right. And so I have the list of fonts that we actually need here. So we need Poppins Regular. We need Poppins Bold and Extra Bold. So these are the font weights that we need, or the font styles. We need Open Sans. We need the regular version and the bold version. And we need Courgette regular version. Now I can tell you Courgette only comes in the regular version. So when I set up this tutorial, I made sure all the fonts, number one, are free, and there's no licensing cost or anything like that. And they're easy to get. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to Google Fonts, and we're going to start searching for our fonts. So Courgette is our first one. And we see in here that there's actually only a regular style, and there's this number 400 next to it. 400 is the weight number that you use in CSS to tell essentially what variant of the font to use. So 400 is regular, 700 is bold, 800 is extra bold, like 300 is thin or something like that. So it's not super duper important, but it's just something to keep in the back of your head. So on here, we can just click the little plus button, and then we get this over here, it's the selected family. And if for some reason this is hidden, you can click this puzzle looking piece up here, view selected families. Okay. So let's go ahead and get our other fonts real quick. So we needed Open Sans. Okay. And just going to go to my notes here, and we need regular and bold. So let's come down here and find regular for not the italics. We want the regular. And we want the bold here, which is 700. Okay. And lastly, we need Poppins, and we need the regular, bold, and extra bold. So let's go get that as well. And regular 400, bold is 700, and extra bold is 800. Okay, so there are a number of options that you can use to import fonts. I'm just going to keep it super simple. What we can do here is we can click the Add Import, and it will provide us a CSS import that we can just place on a SAS file, and it will import all these fonts. So let's go ahead and do that right away. So what I have a fonts file already set up here, which has Font Awesome already imported. So the way this SAS works, if you want to know more, you can just go to the SASLang website and then go to the documentation, and the @ rules. So generally we're going to use @use and @forward. And a lot of code you're going to see @import. This one here. And you can see an example. You can just like @import and then pull in code from another file. This is technically deprecated. which means it could break in the future if you continue to use it. The proper way to do it these days is to use @use as a way to load code in. And you can use @forward in order to essentially forward packages into different SAS files. Well, I would encourage you to actually maybe read over this page if you want to know more about it. But we're not going to be using it personally that much. I kind of think this is a little complex for kind of like your first project. But you notice if you come in here into this bootstrap file, we're using @forward, and then we're forwarding the bootstrap, and then we can just load that bootstrap file anywhere by using @use. So, sorry, we're getting a little bit off track here. So, going back to Google Fonts here, we can just select this import. And we can just paste it in here. And this will just automatically load all our fonts for us from Google Fonts. Now, if what we want to do is to make this a little easier to work with our fonts, we can see down here that it has provided some CSS rules for us where we can actually write CSS for our fonts. So let's go ahead and create your first CSS class. Okay, a class is, so we'll see here that we have a div tag, okay? And inside of this div tag, it has a property or an attribute called class. And inside of this class is the word hello. Hello is the name of a class, if we go to our index right here, where it says hello, okay? You specify a class with a dot and then a name. Now, typical convention for CSS classes is to use all lowercase and then a dash if you have multiple words. So in this case, we could have courgette as a class. And I'm just going to paste our font families in there real quick. And I'm just going to put these down here for the time being and then comment them out. Most editors, if you're trying to comment out code, all you do is just select the lines and then press Control and forward space. And that will comment out the lines for you very quickly. So how we access a font is by using the font family property, and then you specify the actual name of the font family. In this case, it's courgette, and we imported the family courgette right here. And then you can actually specify multiple font families altogether. So your system will try to use the first one that is in the first spot, and if for some reason it can't load this font, it falls back to the next one, and so on and so on and so forth. And if you wanted to know more about this font family property, what you could do is come up to and go to MDN. Okay, I actually have a window pulled up already, and what we can do here is search for font family. This is one of the two sites I'd recommend you use if you're trying to look up CSS properties. This or W3C School, or I believe that's what it's called. But here we go. We just type in font family, and here we have the font family property. And it will tell you all about the font family property, how you specify it, and essentially how it works. It's generally a pretty straightforward property. But if you're looking for more in-depth information, MDM Web Docs is an amazing and free reference for you to use for CSS. So we will be using this quite a bit in the course, and you should become pretty familiar with it. Now, the second thing that we need to specify is we want to specify the weight of the font. So we use the font weight property. And you remember all these numbers that we had when we were looking at the fonts, right? 400, 700, and 800. And these are the numbers that it's referring to. So in this case, we had the regular size courgette, so it would be font weight 400. Okay. Let's go ahead and just create a couple of extra classes. So we'll have an Open Sans regular, for example, and I'm just going to copy this font family here, and I'm going to set the font weight to 400. And I believe we have bold version of this. Which would be 700. And lastly, we have Poppins. And we're just going to do kind of the same thing here. And then I'm just going to copy this code by using Control D. That's what I have to duplicate line. I'm not sure if that's the default key command or if I changed it some way along the lines. I tend to use mostly stock IntelliJ IDEA key commands, but like I've been using Control D as duplicate for forever. So if that's not it, you might want to go up and change it in your key bindings. So we had regular, we had bold, which is 700. And then we have extra bold, which is 800. Okay. And then we want to go to our index.scss file, and we want to make sure that we have our fonts imported, and you import another file by using @use fonts. Now, here would be a good question. The standard is, you might be wondering why this file has an underline in front of the name, and this one doesn't. The convention in Sass is a file that you want to compile does not have a underscore in front of it. A file with an underscore in it is a file that you use to import into other files. So you can think of this fonts file as like a fonts file, but it's like a module, and I can import it into other files. So when we run the Sass compile, it will only compile this one here. It'll only compile files that don't have the underline in front of them. I hope that makes sense. We want to make sure that we also import our body file like this. And then let's write just a little bit of code just to test out our new cool classes. So we can start writing div class, and then we can use open sans regular. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this line, and then I'm just going to say bold, and we can change the class here to bold. And I'm just going to do this for all the other ones that we have here, so we can make this one courgette. And we can have Poppins. You're going to notice that I have autocomplete here, and so basically just how you use autocomplete is it pops up and you just press enter on what you want, and there you go. If you want autocomplete, or like you have a partial thing here and you're trying to get it to autocomplete, you can press Control Spacebar in IntelliJ, and it'll pop up the autocomplete box for you. So very handy shortcut. And we had a Poppins regular. And then we have a Poppins extra bold. Now what I did there was slightly different. I started typing, and then I pressed down arrow to select my option, and then I press tab, and that will replace the rest of the word with what should be autocomplete there. So that's another handy tip that you should know if you're working in an IntelliJ IDEA, is how to properly autocomplete things, because it just saves you a lot of time. Okay, so we have that, and now we can run our serve dev here, and let's go take a look at what we have. And here we go. So we have regular, bold, courgette, bold, regular, and extra bold, and our fonts look like they're all here and imported correctly. Okay. So that's going to wrap up this first video on fonts, and let's get into some design work.